I'd like to call the annual meeting of the Grafton School District to order. I'd ask everyone present to please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you very much. The annual meeting is our time, actually Topher's time, but the board's time to present to you the status of the finances for the district for the year that just was, and then to engage in a discussion and a budget presentation for next year, or the year that we're actually in. Along with that comes an advisory vote by the electorate relative to the tax levy that is needed to fund that budget. So we'll be looking for that this evening. Everyone here has a handout, right? Everybody has their handout relative. Oh, Dr. Ziegler, special guest, thank you. Anybody else?
Just go ahead.
Care, do we have one more?
I don't. I'm sorry.
Okay, so the annual meeting presentation is in here on page 4 is an agenda. And I think we'll start by introductions here. So by way of introductions, I'd ask the board members to introduce themselves, and then we'd have the administration do the same.
John Skolman, Mark Kaler,
Carrie Wallace.
Paul Lorgy.
Joe Mayo.
Steve Noda, Jerry Ross.
Thank you, board members. Jeff
Nelson, Superintendent.
Topher Adams, Director of Business Services.
Michael McMahon, Principal at Woodview Elementary. Kevin Deere, Principal at John Long Middle School.
Scott Manside, Principal of Grafton High School.
Morris Dawes, Director of Human Services. Diana Kresnick, Director of Teaching and Learning.
Craig Anderson, Principal at Kennedy Elementary School.
J.P. Schofield, Director of Facilities.
So thank you all for your participation tonight, and as well as for the entire year and the years to come. The annual meeting is a special meeting. It's required by law that we hold this annual meeting. If you look at page 2 and 3 in the handout, you'll see the powers of the special meeting, or the things that are afforded us this evening to do. Not that everything on that list are things that we will be doing. Again, the agenda is on page 4 of the handout. The minutes from last year's meeting is at page 5. The first order of business for this annual meeting is to elect a chairperson. That chairperson is a member of the electorate. And do I have a nomination for a chairperson?
Nominate Bob Hoffman.
We have a second to that nomination.
I second.
Do I have a motion? Are there any additional nominations? If not, then I'd entertain a motion to close nominations.
So moved.
We have a second to that.
Second.
All right, we have a nomination for chair. Nominations have been closed. All those in favor of Bob Hoffman chair, aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, Bob, the meeting is now yours.
All right. You're next. All right. Before we start, there's some special rules as far as annual meetings. One is that anyone is invited to these meetings, but only residents have the ability to vote. And we ask that residents who make a motion or second a motion, please give your name so we can get that into the minutes for tonight's meeting. And also, all votes are by a show of hands. We don't have any other way of tabulating votes, so we'll have a show of hands. First thing on the agenda is the treasurer's report.
All right, thank you. In the treasurer's report, I will be presenting the results of last year's financial activity. Detail can be found in your annual meeting packet. There will be an opportunity at the end of the treasurer's report to ask questions before we move on to the budget hearing. This is a list of district funds. I'll present specific information on funds 10, 41, and 46. I'll start with Fund 10. Within Fund 10, we have two major sources of revenue: property taxes, which brought in 62% of our revenue, and Equalization Aid, which was the source of 24% of our revenue. Taking a look at our expenditures, we can see that nearly 2/3 of Fund 10 expenditures are associated with salaries and benefits. Purchase services at 17% include items such as open enrollment out, transportation, utilities, and cleaning services. Transfers to other funds included a transfer to Fund 27 to cover special education costs not covered by federal grants and state special education aid. It also included a $200,000 transfer to Fund 46. This fund is used to address long-term facility needs. We are on pace to have over $1 million available in Fund 46 by July 1st, 2021, when the funds are first available for use. Although we had budgeted for a $400,000 decrease in our fund balance in order to upgrade our competition soccer field, our budget finished favorably by about $345,000, resulting in a fund balance decrease of less than $55,000, bringing our fund balance to $4.97 million. Prior to budgeting for this $400,000 decrease in fund balance, we saw our fund balance grow by more than $1 million over a 3-year period. A healthy fund balance lowers short-term borrowing costs, ensures that the district is prepared in the event of a large unexpected financial loss, and ensures that we maintain a healthy credit rating. Our ending fund balance ratio of 20.7% is above the board policy of maintaining a ratio of at least 10 to 15%. To touch on the budgeted decrease to fund balance, our competition soccer field was having issues with drainage and was often unplayable for days after significant rain. This resulted in numerous games being postponed, rescheduled, and moved off-site. In addition, there was a desire to move the south fencing further away from the playing field to enhance player safety. As a result of the improvements to the soccer field, our boys and girls soccer teams have a better functioning and safer field and will only have to adjust their schedule due to severe weather. Our 20-year capital maintenance plan primarily uses two types of funds that can help manage shared costs and the negative impact to state aid when paying for large capital projects. Fund 41 is funded through a tax levy and was created by the district in 2004. Fund 46, which is funded by a transfer from Fund 10, was created in 2016. Fund 46 will first become available for use July 1st, 2021, 5 years after our first deposit. We ended last year with over $255,000 available in Fund 41. These funds are currently available for use. With regard to Fund 46, we transferred $200,000 from Fund 10 last year, giving us a current total of over $692,000 in this fund. Together, we have almost $950,000 accumulated to address future facility needs in these two capital funds. In addition to maintaining a healthy fund balance and increasing our capacity to address future facility needs, the district broke ground last September on construction projects across the district. All schools received safety and security upgrades, as well as energy efficiency upgrades that helped reduce our utility budgets by over $120,000. Here at the high school, we expanded the tech ed wing, added 4 classrooms, updated science labs, and we replaced the gymnasium, production kitchen, and maintenance building that had been housed at the now eliminated Grafton Elementary. We've also enhanced existing learning spaces, such as the one we're in right now, with the creation of collaboration spaces for staff and students. As mentioned, we eliminated Grafton Elementary and expanded our remaining elementary schools, consolidating from 3 to 2, saving the district roughly $200,000 annually in future personnel costs. Our middle school received renovations and upgrades last year, with most of the work at John Long Middle School scheduled to occur in the summer of 2019. In short, across the district, we've enhanced learning spaces, improved safety and security, all while realizing annual cost savings related to the operating of our schools. Questions?
If you look at the agenda for this evening's meeting, the next step is the adoption of a levy. And there's a recommended, some wording there for a recommended motion. So we're looking for someone from the residents of the district to make a motion,
Bob,
the recommended motion.
Bob, if I could just,
You can.
we need to step back and run through the budget first,
Oh,
right?
Yes.
Did I get that right?
All right. Now we are going to do that. We're going to look ahead to the 2018-2019 budget. First, I'm going to present the revenue and expenditure budgets, and then I will finish off with the levy and the mill rate estimate. As this pie chart shows, a large majority of Fund 10 revenue comes from property taxes and equalization aid. These two sources are controlled by the revenue limit, which we will delve into later in this presentation. We also receive revenue from other districts when their residents open enroll into our schools. Another revenue source, which will account for 6% of our revenue, is per pupil aid. Per pupil aid has become the primary mechanism for increasing revenues available to school districts. In fact, we are anticipating our per pupil aid to increase over $400,000 from last year as a result of our per pupil aid increasing from $450 per pupil to $654 per pupil. Now, we do see a significant drop in our property tax revenue in Fund 10, which I will touch on briefly. The decrease in our Fund 10 tax levy is the result in a decrease overall in our tax levy authority within the revenue limit, and the increases to the Fund 38 levy and the Fund 41 levy. The Fund 38 levy increased as a result of issuing bonds largely to fund energy efficiency projects. Those increased payments are offset by budget reductions to our utility budget as a result of the energy efficiency projects completed last year. The Fund 41 levy associated with our 20-year capital maintenance fund increased $30,000 and was offset by increased parking and athletic participation fees. We also are levying $800,000 into Fund 41 for purposes I will touch on later. That will result in a budgeted decrease in our fund balance. Last year we levied $400,000 in this manner. In short, the large majority of our decrease in the Fund 10 tax levy will not impact the classroom. The result of the additional levy into Fund 41 is a Fund 10 revenue budget that decreases slightly this year after increasing slightly the year before. Moving on to our expenditures, salaries and benefits make up almost 2/3 of our expenditure budget, with purchase services making up 17% and our transfer to Fund 27 and 46 making up 14% of the budget. When comparing this year's expenditure categories to last year's expenditure categories, salaries and benefits do stand out, not because they change significantly, but rather because they do not. As mentioned earlier, we have reduced personnel costs by consolidating from 3 elementaries to 2, thus limiting the increase in salaries. With regard to benefits, the elimination of health insurance as a retiree benefit a number of years ago has resulted in significant savings each year as another group of retirees expend their health insurance benefit eligibility, with no new retirees qualifying for that benefit. I'll also note that this budget does include over $325,000 that can be used to address items not included in the referendum, such as ceiling tiles, casework, and flooring in existing classrooms, as well as flexible furniture throughout our buildings. Budgeting for these one-time expenditures will allow us to meet potential future budget challenges without having to reduce staff or programming. I will also point out that the transfers out category does include a $130,000 transfer to Fund 46. Continuing to budget a $130,000 transfer to Fund 46 in future years will result in having well over $1 million available by July 1st, 2021 to address items identified in our 20-year capital maintenance plan. Our expenditure budget overall increases a little over $200,000 or 0.9% when compared to last year's budget. With a budgeted decrease to our fund balance of $800,000, we are projecting to end the year with a fund balance ratio of 17.2%, still above the board policy of maintaining a fund balance ratio of at least 10 to 15%. Now we'll move on to our levy and mill rate estimate. We'll work our way through these factors, which are used to determine our all-fund tax levy and resulting mill rate. I'll start with the revenue limit. Our revenue limit calculation controls how much revenue we can raise from the combination of equalization aid and property taxes. Our revenue limit is based primarily on these two factors. It's calculated by multiplying our maximum revenue per member allowed by our 3-year membership average. I would like to point out that when talking about membership, we're discussing students that reside in our district, whether they attend our schools or open enroll out to another school district. Prior to 2011-2012, districts could count on the maximum revenue per member allowed to increase at least $200 annually. This means a district our size could expect to see an increase in the revenue limit of about $400,000 even with no increase in membership. After the budget repair bill in 2011-12, which decreased our maximum per member amount by almost $600, the increases in this amount have been significantly less, and in fact has been $0 for 4 years running. The only way to increase the revenue limit now is through a change in membership. When looking at our membership history, you can see the increase in our membership average beginning in 2014-15 after many years of decline. This was due to the addition of our 4-year-old kindergarten program in 2014-15. Since this is a 3-year average, we do not fully count these students until 2016-17. Therefore, we saw a gradual increase in our membership average over those 3 years. Currently, we are projecting a second consecutive year in which our 3-year membership average drops. A change in our 3-year membership average is not driven by the change in membership from the prior year, but rather the difference between the current year membership and the membership from 3 years prior. We are projecting our 2018 membership to be 2,022. While this would be an increase from last year, this is replacing our 2015 membership of 2,056 members and will result in our 3-year membership dropping from 2,030 to 2019. Now I bring up a slide that we've looked at numerous times beginning last January. The effect of decreased membership in 2017-18 was the addition of 2 revenue limit exemptions that we had not received the year before. A hold harmless exemption in yellow added $100,000 to our revenue limit and brought our revenue limit back up to the prior year's initial calculation in green. The declining enrollment exemption added another $105,000 on top of that. Those exemptions are not carried over into 2018-19. With a projected loss of 11 members in our 3-year membership average, our initial revenue limit calculation falls short of last year's initial calculation by about $115,000. The hold harmless exemption brings us back up to last year's base, but then the declining enrollment exemption falls short by about $94,000 of replacing the $210,000 of revenue limit exemptions that fell off. Looking ahead to 2019-2020, projected declining enrollment exemption of $31,000 would fall almost $200,000 short of replacing the $231,000 worth of exemptions that would not carry over from the prior year. In addition, we do not know how much per pupil aid how it may change in the next biennial budget. This adds to the importance of budgeting the $325,000 for one-time expenditures that could be eliminated without affecting personnel and programming should future budgets present challenges. The previous 3 years saw increases in our revenue limit. This year we are budgeting for a decrease in our revenue limit. Now that we have our revenue limit, we can figure out how much of the revenue limit will be funded with equalization aid and how much will come from the property tax levy. Equalization aid is distributed to districts based on how much property value they have per member. It's similar to a needs-based scholarship and is designed to equalize property tax rates between districts that are property rich and districts that are property poor. To illustrate the needs-based scholarship, I have a couple of charts showing 2 actual school districts. The revenue limit per member is different for every district. Ours, we're allowed to raise about $10,500. But imagine that each of these 2 districts, to make the math simple, can each raise $10,000 per member. You can see how the property-rich district, with over $1.3 million of property value per member, receives only enough equalization aid to cover 6% or $600 per member. The other 94%, or $9,400, must come from property taxes. The property poor district, with only about $183,000 of property value per member, receives enough equalization aid to cover 83%, or $8,300 per member. Only 17%, or $1,700, has to come from property taxes. The property-rich district has to levy more per student, but has more property value to levy against, thus equalizing the tax rates. You can see the same thing here when comparing our ratio to a district that is average with regard to property value per member. Being a property-rich district, we received enough aid to cover 20% of our revenue limit versus 48% for the district with an average amount of property value per member. This year's equalization aid is calculated using 2017-2018 data. While we saw equalized values increase 3%, statewide they increased 4.1%. That helps us look a little bit less property rich. However, we had a decrease in our membership of 18, which then made us look a little bit more property rich per member. Essentially, these 2 factors canceled each other out, resulting in the same local per member amount in relation to the state as last year, 136% of the state average. In addition to these factors, our shared cost increased as a result of the increased debt levy payments, which hurts us in the formula as we are negatively aided on increased spending. However, the state allocated an additional $73 million towards equalization aid statewide, mitigating the effect of the increased shared cost. At the end of the day, these factors result in just a very slight decrease to our state aid. And after a substantial decrease last year, this year's decrease amounts to about $22,000, a drop of 0.4%. Once we know our equalization aid, we can determine our levy authority. When we subtract the equalization aid and computer aid from the revenue limit, we are left with a levy authority of over $15.6 million. This levy authority within the revenue limit gets allocated into a number of funds. We levy into Fund 38 to make debt payments within the revenue limit. We also levy into our capital expansion fund, known as Fund 41. This leaves us with over $14.2 million that we may levy into Fund 10. I will note that $800,000 levied into Fund 41, of the $880,000 levied into Fund 41, it includes $800,000 that have been earmarked for capital improvements. $800,000 is being set aside to potentially use in upgrading athletic fields and other areas not included in the referendum. The shift from Fund 10 to Fund 41 results in a budgeted decrease in our fund balance. By expending this money in Fund 41, the shared cost will be spread out over 18 years, resulting in an estimated loss of state aid of $16,000 per year for 18 years, rather than a one-time loss of $288,000 in 2019-2020. Once we total up our levies within the revenue limit, right up here, and add our Fund 39 levy used to make referendum debt payments, we have our all-fund tax levy of about $18.6 million. After an increase of 9.3% last year, following 3 relatively flat levies, our all-fund tax levy once again flattens out. Once we have our all-fund tax levy, we can determine the tax rate, also known as the mill rate, by taking that all-fund tax levy and applying it against the district's equalized property values. The district's equalized property value has steadily increased, including an estimated 5.7% increase this year. Applying the levy against equalized property value yields a $10.67 mill rate. This is a 60-cent decrease from the prior year. The resulting decrease in the tax impact for 2018-19 comes to $60 per $100,000 of equalized property value. This chart shows the impact of the school tax levy on property tax bills. The impact of the school tax levy on property tax bills for property values of $100,000, $300,000, and $500,000. We are currently using many estimates in our budget. We will have final budget numbers in October and approve the final budget and certify the levy at the October 22nd board meeting. Are there any questions?
Now we're looking for someone to recommend a motion for the adoption of the tax levy. And the recommended motion suggested is in the agenda in item 7.
I'll make the motion. I move that the Grafton School District levy a tax on Terry Ziegler, by the way. Town of Grafton. That the Grafton School District levy a tax for the 2018-19 school year of $14,234,497 for the general fund, $529,185 for the non-referendum debt service fund, $880,000 for the capital expansion fund, and $2,967,900 for the referendum debt service fund on all taxable property in the school district for furnishings, equipping and maintaining school buildings, for the operation of schools, and for paying or discharging any debts and liabilities.
Is there a second to that motion? And your name? So there's a motion on the floor for the recommended tax, for the adoption of the tax levy. I'll ask all those in favor of the motion to raise your hand. Keep your hands raised, please. And all those opposed, please raise your hand. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is board member salaries. There's a note there that the salaries currently are $1,450 for president, vice president, clerk, and treasurer, and $1,350 for other board members. We need a motion to either change those salaries or keep them the same. Is there a motion?
Move to keep them the same.
And your name?
Bob Moyer.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Terry Ziegler. There's been a motion on the floor to keep the board member salaries the same. $1,450 for president, vice president, clerk, and treasurer, and $1,350 for other board members. All those in favor of the motion signify by raising your hand. Keep your hands raised. Thank you. All those opposed, raise your hand. Are there any other matters to be brought before the annual meeting tonight? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Bob Miller, and a second?
Second.
Terry Ziegler. All those in favor of the motion to adjourn, raise your hands, please. And those opposed? Meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, Bob.